Welcome to Marvelous Disney, the podcast that discusses the most recent doings in one of the more dynamic divisions of the Walt Disney Company, and that is, of course, Marvel Entertainment. This is entertainment writer Jim Hill, and my co-host, the amazing Aaron Adams, and I are recording this week's episode on Monday, January 11th, 2021. How are you tonight, Aaron?
I'm surviving. I guess that's as good as I can get right now. I'm just happy to be here. It seems like things are askew everywhere, and I'm happy for the little bit of stability that I have in my little piece of world.
Okay. And another thing to be happy is we are just 4 days out from the debut of WandaVision, Marvel Studios' very first limited series for Disney+. And we're not just getting one episode for that show's debut, we're getting two. And all told, there will be 9 episodes of WandaVision. But anyway, as Kevin was out making the rounds, he was talking about the fact that if things had gone according to plan, Falcon and the Winter Soldier would have been in the first limited series out of the gate. You were mentioning, from having watched the footage from the Disney Investor Day, that Falcon and the Winter Soldier really had a movie-like visual sensibility. I mean, big action scenes, that sort of thing.
Well, I don't want to say that in that way, like it was the only one, because, WandaVision's got a very TV-centric feel right now. And then you compare it to Falcon flying through a canyon a la Top Gun style, Tom Cruise way, and that's a huge disparity between the two, a huge gulf to cross. And just recently, I'd read a quote from Paul Bettany that had said, when they get to the end of WandaVision, it goes from TV to full cinematic movie-style MC universe that we know and love. And I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting this all to stay kind of TV-centric focused. How many episodes did you say we had? 9?
We have not.
Yeah, so maybe in episodes 7 and 8, things come back to reality, and then we get to the battle, if you will.
Okay. Well, what's kind of interesting, remember that Falcon and the Winter Soldier had to shut down in Prague back in March of last year due to COVID-19, and obviously with the cinematic look you were just talking about, that shoot was harder for the production team to pick up where it left off, whereas WandaVision, because, as you mentioned, this series leans really heavily into a sitcom sensibility, was far easy for Marvel Studios to just restart production of that particular show, which is why, in the end, that's what happened. WandaVision basically jumped ahead of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Anyway, folks, lots and lots of Marvel-related news today, which we'll get to in a sec. But first, I need to remind you that the news portion of today's show is brought to you by Storybook Destinations, trusted travel partner for the Marvel Us Disney podcast. When you're ready to travel again and are looking for a worry-free vacation experience, please book online at StorybookDestinations.com. And forgive me for the world's worst transition coming out of that plug. But given that the U.S. has experienced more than 27,000 new COVID-related deaths in just the first 10 days of 2021, Aaron, I seriously wonder if anybody's traveling anywhere anytime soon. And that includes to your local multiplex.
Not unless they've gotten a shot in the last week or two.
That's the thing. I forget, I was just hearing the stories about how, yes, the shots are out there, but I guess they've only got 30 million, I want to say, out there, and this is far below the point or the target they were shooting for, which is why, and again, I know this is, you're going to drop dead shock from hearing this, but did you see the story in Variety today about how studios once again are looking ahead to now their schedule for 2021 and going, well, maybe we need to move some things.
Oh, geez. Do I really have to open up my closet, get up on my tippy toes to the very top shelf and grab my surprise face again? I always thought that, May seemed like a safe bet because we heard that a thing was going to happen and timeline, wonderful. And no, that's not usually how reality rolls with it. You never go with the plan. It's always, something happened. We got to alter the plan just a little bit. It'll only be a week or two. And then, this other thing happened. It'll only be another week or two. Whatever. But May for Black Widow is too dang early. And I don't think it's going to make much money in the box office Unfortunately, because these things are driven by financial success or failure, I don't know if that means that future Black Widow projects would automatically get a death knell because of bad placement. Too soon will be the mantra for that one.
Well, here's what they reported today in Variety, that there's chatter that another Disney tentpole, the Scarlett Johansson-led Marvel adventure Black Widow, may follow in the steps of fellow studio-release Raya and the Last Dragon, which is supposed to premiere concurrently in theaters and on Disney Plus for a premium price. Disney insiders continue to deny these whispers, but yet in the age of Corona, nothing is being considered until it is.
You know what? If they're going to put it on Disney Plus, they could have done it a long time ago. The reason they waited is they wanted a theatrical experience. You have to watch this in a theater to see every little detail. That's why you got to experience it with the crowd. And you can't back out now and go, oh yeah, and we're also going to release it on Disney Plus at the same time. That kind of urinating in the wind. You know, it's wrong direction, man.
Okay.
You're getting your leg wet.
I love the discreet euphemism. That's okay. There we go. What's kind of interesting is Kevin's a fascinating interview. He would, for example, talking about what they've been dealing with COVID. He feels lucky because it's like if COVID had happened in 2017 when they were shooting Infinity War and Endgame back to back, if that 6-month-long shoot had been disrupted with 30 big-name actors who all had to come in and shoot scenes at various times around other projects and all that sort of thing, that would have been disaster. Whereas this year, with WandaVision and the other stuff, it's like we could work with that.
It's the best breaking off point you could have ever hoped for. You got your little coda at the end with Spider-Man, Far From Home. And so that door is closed. It's complete. Let's take a 2-year hiatus to get rid of the sickness and then start fresh and new. I mean, imagine, Jim, if Corona had happened right after we had gotten Infinity War and we're still waiting on Endgame right now. Can you imagine how that would be? I'd be an angry individual right now.
Well, it's interesting you bring up Infinity War because Kevin, again, talking with Screenwriter earlier this week and discussing the origins of WandaVision, he talked about how they had their very first conversations about this project when they were out on the press junket for Infinity War. It was almost 3 years now since we first had a discussion with Elizabeth and Paul. I think during the press junket for Infinity Wars, Bob Iger had come to us and explained that Disney would be launching a streaming service and that they wanted Marvel Studios to start working on programs for it. And WandaVision was one of the very first ideas we came up with. And that was mainly because there were so many great Wanda and Vision stories to tell and that we'd only scratched the surface with their relationship in the MCU movies. And also because, Paul and Elizabeth were so spectacular, we knew they could carry anything, and we wanted to work with them more. Okay, so why then sitcoms? Why use that as the inspiration for WandaVision? Again, Feige had this amazing story about how it all had to do with the trauma that Wanda experienced in Infinity Wars. Wanda first destroys the Mind Stone and Vision in order to prevent Thanos from getting access to all 6 of the Infinity Stones, only to then have Thanos use the Time Stone to reverse Wanda's action and then rip the repaired Mind Stone from Vision's forehead. So, in effect, because of what Wanda does, Vision is killed twice, which understandably puts Wanda in a very emotional state, which we saw a little bit of during the Scarlet Witch's face-off with Thanos in Endgame. And again, this is Feige talking to Screenrant. The beauty, the simplicity of a sitcom is that when there's a problem at the beginning of the episode, 30 minutes later, there's going to be a solution, and you can then move on. Think of how comforting that would be to live in a world like that if you were someone like Wanda who'd gone through something as traumatic as what happened to Vision. But the idea of, okay, let's do a show that pays tribute to sitcoms, but let's do it right. And they were so determined to get it right, they actually sat down with Dick Van Dyke and asked for his input on this Marvel limited
Did
series.
he teach him how to trip over a futon? Or not a futon, an ottoman?
It's actually, it's great that you mentioned that, because series director Matt Shackman, this was with an interview with Christine Radish at Collider. He talked about again, the lunch they had with Dick Van Dyke and mentioned that what Dick told them is that you can tumble over ottomans, you can be goofy, you can be anything, just as long as it's grounded in real life. That was one of the reference points that they used for WandaVision, that there had to be, in the middle of all this sitcom silliness, some real stuff. Do you remember the Dick Van Dyke show that sort of paid tribute to the Twilight Zone, the Walnuts episode?
No.
It's 20th episode of season 2 of the Dick Van Dyke Show. It's called It May Look Like a Walnut, but it's the Dick Van Dyke Show that literally in the middle of the episode makes a hard left and becomes the Twilight Zone. In fact, that's one of the more interesting things of the show, is it really is sending up the Twilight Zone. But it showed the team that was making WandaVision that what they were going to try to do was possible, that you could do this tribute to the classic family sitcoms of the 50s and the 60s, but you could also bring in these other weird elements like the Twilight Zone and really create a mystery that could then play out over, 9 episodes or so. But at the same time, in order to get that feel, in order to get that look just right, they really leaned into the actual production techniques that were used for shows like I Love Lucy and the Dick Van Dyke Show. And that meant filming in front of a live audience, which evidently Elizabeth Olsen found it really nerve-wracking because, again, you're not playing to an audience when you're, in a classic sitcom, but you are feeding off of the energy of the audience. Right. So she was talking about how, that, and the thing is that when you shoot that way, it was the very first thing they shot, and a lot of quick changes. There was a lot of adrenaline, and she was honestly so happy when the show WandaVision then moved on to spoofing sitcoms of the late 60s and the early 70s, like The Brady Bunch, because those actually shot, they didn't shoot in front of an audience. They actually had a fourth wall. And again, we get 2 episodes on the 15th, and, they do a nice job of sort of setting up the world, setting up the stakes, and, laying out just enough of the mystery that you do come back. And speaking of coming back, when we get back from this commercial break, Aaron and I are going to talk about Deadpool 3.
This podcast is brought to you by Carvana. Carvana lets you buy your next car on your terms. Explore a massive inventory online, filter for what matters, and find your perfect match. Then choose delivery to your home or pick it up at one of Carvana's iconic car vending machines. Every car also comes with a 7-day money-back guarantee, so you can make sure it's the right fit. Buy your car on Carvana. Delivery or pickup fees may apply. Limitations and exclusions may apply. See our 7-day return policy at Carvana.com.
Carvana. Breathe deep. Imagine your legs more limber in Duluth Trading Double Flex Denim. Envision euphorically squatting for that can of suds, bending for your toolbox in a state of bliss, lunging for your laser level on a whole new level. Relax and allow the flex to fill you with ability. Find your inner flex in Double Flex Denim only at Duluth Trading.
Kevin, as he was out talking about WandaVision, the nice thing is you have him in a room and you can ask him anything. And so the question then came up about Deadpool 3. And on earlier episodes, you and I talked about how the Logelin sisters, Lizzie and Wendy, are hard at work on the screenplay for this thing. But here's also some other Deadpool news that Kevin shared with Steve Weintraub. This sequel, just like the first 2 Deadpool movies, will be R-rated. We're working on a script right now, and Ryan's overseeing that script. Deadpool 3 won't begin shooting this year. That's largely because Ryan's a very busy, very successful actor. So this R-rated sequel won't begin shooting till 2022 at the earliest. And as long as they got Feige talking about future MCU movies, the folks over at comicbook.com, then pressed him about all of the casting stories that have been bubbling up about the third Tom Holland Spider-Man movie. How Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are supposedly making appearances in this Sony Pictures production. And Kevin, to his credit, had some fun with his response. It's like, yeah, I've read some things. The fun thing about online speculation is that when it comes to our stuff, that sometimes they couldn't be more off the mark, and sometimes it's shockingly close. And that's held true for the last few years. But saying which is which would take some of the fun out of everything. But the comic book guys, to their credit, pressed Feige. He got a little more serious with his next response and said, look, the biggest clue I can give you about the next Spider-Man movie is the title of the Doctor Strange movie. And that's The Multiverse of Madness. So the question now is, where is the Multiverse of Madness taking us? And that's something we'll be exploring in WandaVision, the next Spider-Man movie, as well as the next Doctor Strange film. So, by the way, in this response, somewhere there might be a clue as to who the big name performer is that's supposedly turning up in one of the later versions or later episodes of WandaVision. Here's the interesting quote from Paul Bettany. What I can't tell you is about the actor who's going to be a surprise to everyone. It's like, I got to work with an actor that I've been wanting to work with forever. It's just unbelievable, and we had some real fireworks together. So given that Elizabeth is supposedly showing up in Multiverse of Madness, what do you think, Benedict Cumberbatch? Or
I would expect it to be someone new.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I wouldn't be thinking of any of the current Avengers. I mean, it's like they're all in a fraternity or a club right now. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, we're Avengers. You know, we all got the tattoo. You know, so even if they didn't get to work directly with another person on a movie, they still kind of got their credits, you know, naming the credits next to them, so they work together technically. Just not in the same scene. So I don't know how do they look at it as a celebrity? As, you know, do you have to actually share a scene with Benedict Cumberbatch to have quote unquote worked with Benedict Cumberbatch?
That's an interesting question. I wish I knew my Marvel Cinematic Universe better than this, that I would know definitively whether or not these two have been in a scene.
Well, the thing is, we don't have a villain. We don't have a big bad. Who's the antagonist? I mean, if we knew that, then we might have a different direction of who it was that he was so excited to work with, and maybe why he was so excited to work with them.
But just to give you some idea of where this project is or how important WandaVision is to Disney, I mean, the very best sitcoms, the most memorable ones, have a memorable theme song. And so as WandaVision was in the works, the thinking was, wow, we really need a good theme song for this
Danny
thing.
Elfman!
So that's a great choice. But the interesting thing is, again, this is Disney. So Disney was thinking, well, who do we turn to for great songs? And in this case, it was Bobby Lopez and his wife, Kristen Anderson Lopez, the team behind, of course, the score for both of the Frozen films, as well as Pixar's Coco.
Wait a minute, we're hiring them to do what for us now?
They're writing just the theme songs for the faux sitcoms that we see in WandaVision.
I'm trying to see the translation, I guess. Frozen to bouncy 60s type of theme song. Okay, I can see it. Go ahead.
Well, the interesting thing is, evidently, Matt Shankman, Bobby went to college with Shankman, so he pitched it to them. And Kristen and Bobby didn't even have to think about it. They loved the bright feeling of American sitcoms mixed with the deep sense of unease that this story had. And it was a really inviting challenge to set up that tone. And Kristen chimed in. It's like, look, I grew up in the 80s watching all of these shows from all these decades all day long, you know, episodes of I Love Lucy and The Brady Bunch and Family Ties. They shaped who I am and how I moved through the world. So to their way of thinking, this was a dream project. So they leaped right into it. But anyway, sorry, we keep circling back to WandaVision on today's podcast. But to be honest, given where the Marvel Cinematic Universe is headed for the next year or so, you know, the path to the Spider-Man 3 home renewal. What was your theory?
No, I have a lot of theories for they could be home run to, like run home,
Okay. All right.
I don't know. It's so crazy. It's just so crazy. I was going through the list of Marvel characters because we're getting WandaVision. And it was like, well, obviously, because Wanda and Vision both have never had a solo movie. And then it was like, oh, wait, you know what? Falcon and the Winter Soldier. They also have not had their own standalone film. They've always been a side character in someone else's film. And then I was like, I wonder if this is a trend I'm just discovering all by myself. Hawkeye is coming out. He also never got a movie. He was just an Avenger that got tacked on with a bow and arrow. And then Nick Fury, he's got a thing coming out for Disney Plus, right?
This
Secret
is true.
Invasion.
This is true.
And he's never had a solo thing. Hulk, which had the Universal problem, never had a solo thing, but voila, She-Hulk. And what do we hear? Ruffalo's coming in to be a part of that. And then War Machine, also a sidekick in all of the Iron Man movies and all of the Avenger movies, but never had his own feature of his own. And he's got Armor Wars.
To double back to the Hulk thing, we're talking about
She-Hulk?
Mark Ruffalo's take on the Hulk, because obviously there was the Ed Norton movie, and I'm blanking the name of the gentleman who did the Ang Lee film.
Eric Bana.
There we go. I mean, you bring up an interesting point.
So I was just wondering if there's any other heroes that were side heroes that haven't had their own movie. I'm wondering, are they going to get a series, a Disney Plus? Here's your show for Shuri, or whatever. And then, do we have the news about Black Panther about that yet?
Kevin actually has been also addressing that issue. He's been relatively straightforward about the fact that we're not going to be doing a CG version of Chadwick Boseman. Ryan Coogler is working on the script right now. He has solid backing of the studio on his take as to what they're going to do and how they're going to honor Chadwick, but yet move forward with this character. So
here's the dilemma, Jim. You're a writer, okay?
Yeah.
Let's pretend for a second I'm your boss, and I come to you and I say, Jim, I've got a project for you. We're going to have you write a movie. And it starts shooting when? When does it start shooting?
They're going to start shooting in July. It's going to be a 6-month-long shoot, and then it's out next summer. Which, again, seems a ridiculously tight turnaround, especially for a project like this.
So I'm coming to you as a writer in January saying we got to start rolling film in July. Your lead actor is unfortunately passed. You can't use CGI. It's disrespectful. You can't recast him. He was too attached to that role. It would dishonor everything that he brought into that by recasting him. So we can't do that either. I need a script with him in it. I don't know how you're going to do it. Right. And what do you come up with, Jim? That's a small box.
That is a very small box, but at the same time, I wonder if the folks at Marvel kind of defaulted to the Last Jedi situation when they lost Carrie Fisher.
But what footage are you going to, is it off of the entire career from Civil War all the way through Endgame? All of that unused footage, you have to go sifting through that before you can, and then you got to kind of write down, these are the words he said, and now I've got to write a script and you got to, move those words around so it makes sentences and whatnot, and that weren't used for Civil War specifically, or weren't used for Endgame specifically, that were discarded B-roll material for another movie, and you got to make that your A-roll. Oh, Jim. Oh. What do you write? What do you write? Oh, the keyboard is a mean beast that day.
Yeah. In a weird sort of way, this brings to mind Blake Edwards.
After Peter Sellers had passed for Pink Panther, and they made... was it on the trail of the Pink Panther?
Well, I think there were actually 2 films. They made the trail of the Pink Panther, and then I want to say the son of the Pink Panther, which was supposed to set up the new character to carry the franchise. And it did not work. It was an interesting exercise, and there were a lot of very, very talented people involved. And
so I don't want to have the fear that the Black Panther 2 is on the trail of the Black Panther.
There you go. The search for T'Challa, so to speak. I, again, as a writer, I don't know what I would do with this situation. And the fact that you have to feel for Ryan Coogler, who had the second film written.
I mean, at some point you do have a compass that, we know that we've got a direction to go in. In the overall scheme, Feige knows the MCU's chess pieces and where he intends on them moving. So if he knows that Eternals is a part of a thing coming up, and he needs to move this chess piece over with this chess piece to make a battle happen, it's kind of weird because you've got a fortune teller at your disposal. Feige, what's going to happen in a year with the MCU? With all the movies I'm not writing? Oh, these 5 things and these characters and blah. Excellent. I've got a compass. I'm going that direction.
We know from the Investors' Day presentation that he wants to move forward with Blade, and we got confirmed that the Fantastic Four film is in the works. So it's just like, as you said, that where the rocks in the river that Feige's trying to get to are. But it's like, how do you get there? And speaking of the Fantastic Four, I want to bring up the Marvel publishing side. Evidently, there's a book called Marvel August 1961 Omnibus. August of 1961 was when Marvel actually launched the original Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four #1 came out. But at the same time, Marvel was a comic book company. And there were 11 other books that Marvel published in August of 1961 that you get to see how Marvel stepped out into this superhero space and did something different and launched its Silver Age of Heroes with, the first family of Marvel. But this omnibus has the Western comic they published that month, the romance comic that month. And you get to understand that what a crapshoot it was to roll the dice on the Fantastic Four and have that somehow break through and launch this whole new series of things for Marvel. So understanding that here's Feige now trying to get back to the first family of Marvel and introduce them into the bigger MCU. I wonder, with all these films and these television shows we've been talking about today, it's like, what's the thread? How does he get us there?
It's got to be an origin story, I would imagine, because it seems like they all have origin stories, with the exception, oddly, of Spider-Man. He came to us already formed. He had his power. Tony found him, brought him in. We didn't have to go through the whole hubbub, got bit by a spider. I mean, I guess we do have the option, technically, if we could just skip it. They just exist. So then what is the catalyst that brings them into the story? Dr. Doom, baby. Come on. That's what I'm waiting for, is Victor Von Doom to have a very righteous goal in mind that just requires, something like Thanos, the destruction of half the planet. But it's for a very good cause, something like that. And I do think that because Tony Stark has been as much a blessing as a curse as he was to the MCU, because he was responsible for Ultron. And that technology still exists, and Doom needs Doombots. And what better Doombots can you have than an old discarded Ultron? Something like that you can tinker and just put out there, because you don't need a story for that. It's like, oh, so he's a robot genius? No, it's an Ultron. They mass duplicated, remember? That's how they got along. They just found tech and made new Ultron. So why not just grab some of those and have, voila, Doombots. Throw a green cloak over it, done. I mean, it seems like it could be a really fast track, because you need quick language. Remember when the battle in Endgame started happening and Peter showed up? He goes, "What's happening, Mr. Stark? That guy from space came after the wizard for a gem. Go." We need it to be that quick now. So Ultron into Doombot. Doom now wreaking havoc on the world. Who can stop him? Oh, let me introduce you to the first family known as the Fantastic Four.
We're talking about Endgame. We were talking earlier about Infinity War, and those films were earned. We had all of the films that led up to this point. We saw, the various conflicts. Again, think about how the Scarlet Witch and her brother came on the scene in Age of Ultron. And, that, in fact, I to this day, I still love that wonderful scene where Wanda's in the house hiding with Hawkeye. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, look, I got arrows, all right? It's like, I have to go back out there. But if you come back out there, you have to help us. I think what the Marvel films all do so well is that mix of huge action scenes, but these great little human moments, which actually give these actors something to do. And a Hollywood Reporter just this week talked about how Feige and the MCU almost got beat to the whole team-up movie. Because, I guess back in 2011, 20th Century Fox came within inches of making a Fantastic Four versus the X-Men movie. And not only that, Aaron, but supposedly they got the idea from the Civil War crossover comic book series. So they would have effectively poached the thing that introduced us to the Black Panther, or for that matter, the amazing battle at the airport in Leipzig. But anyway, this is supposedly the storyline for the film. It would have gotten underway when Johnny Storm accidentally blows a hole in Manhattan when he goes supernova trying to capture a classic Fantastic Four villain, Molecule Man. So that's the inciting event. And this in turn sparks the Superhero Registration Act, which again, I guess they called those the Sokovia Accords.
Right, yeah.
So in this film, it's the Fantastic Four and the X-Men that ends up on the different sides of this issue as opposed to basically the Avengers splitting down the middle. And the idea, evidently, Fox wanted to use all of the Marvel characters that it had the rights to in a single film. And it ended up, surprise, surprise, with an epic superhero battle with Wolverine, right. Which still at this point is played by Hugh Jackman. Yep. And he's fighting Mr. Fantastic. And you had mentioned who did it was, I guess,
Ewan Grufford was the original Reed Richards in that. Now, the thing is, this is supposed to take place in 2011. So we have a decision to make. Do we go with the Fantastic Four movies from 2005 and 2007? 2011 is only 4 years after, so it could very well be. However, the Fantastic Four movie that was rebooted happened in 2015, which was also a difference of 4 years. So are we claiming the new reboot cast or the old? Because it's right smack dab in the middle.
Absolutely. And
or are we going to go with the Corman?
Oh, no. We don't talk about the Corman. But here's the thing, that the hero versus hero brawl ended with Reed Richards pinning Wolverine down and then extending his hands until they're one molecule wide and then using them as scissors to cut the mutant's arms off. And in the article, they were like, they grow back, right?
But they wouldn't grow back with adamantium on the bones. It would just be the bones.
No!
Yeah. See, that's why Reed is the smartest man in the MCU. Yeah, he's using the old noodle on that one. They were going to use all of the characters that they had.
All of the characters that Fox had. Yeah.
Are we going to get Ben Affleck back for Daredevil?
Hey, that's an actually interesting point. They mentioned, as part of this article, that the film would have featured Daredevil and Deadpool.
Oh, whoa.
Not only that,
we got to stop and reanalyze Deadpool. Okay, 2011. When did we have Ryan in the Hugh? Was that Hugh? The Wolverine Origins, right?
There we go. And then this is where it gets interesting, because again, that version of the character, which, let's be honest, everyone hates.
Oh, damn, that was 2009. So that would have been after 2009. that. We have to cast Ryan. Oh.
Yeah, but not the good version of Ryan. But here's how close this got to be made. Paul Greengrass, who would then eventually go on to direct The Bourne Supremacy, confirmed that he was in talks with Fox about this never-made X-Men versus Fantastic Four film. He said, they did talk to me about it. I wouldn't say I was attached, but we talked, and I thought about it. In the end, nothing happened. And as for a script, Zach Stentz, the gentleman who wrote X-Men First Class, he talked about how Ashley Edwards Miller and I, when we were working at Fox and we were working on X-Men First Class, they had us do a secret movie script for them, which I can't tell you the plot, but I can tell you it used all the characters, all of the Marvel characters that Fox had at the time, used X-Men, used Fantastic Four, used Daredevil, used Deadpool, and Daredevil was still at Fox at the time. So, and again, that was 5 years before Captain America Civil War debuted in theaters in May of 2016.
Well, we just would have had to find a different way for our heroes to not get along with one another. Gee, how challenging is that? Especially with the Fantastic Four, because they're just the family that bickers amongst one another and manage to still get stuff done.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I did you see the news out there about Feige's Star Wars project?
I did. And I'm not happy about that. It's not like we're asking for anything but a lifelong commitment to nothing but Marvel. It's been a success. Please don't just enjoy your time in another sandbox. You're committed to this salt mine. Now go mine your salt. Make it Marvel flavored.
Well, actually, I was talking with somebody at Disney, and they could not really talk about this because they've just hired the screenwriter, the guy who wrote the first season of Loki. And by the way, did you see as part of this news breaking that they mentioned that there is a second season of Loki already in the works?
Oh, that's good. I've been really worried that a lot of these were going to be one-offs because you're just not going to have, space on the calendar if you keep coming up with new stuff for new heroes. Something's got to give at some point. Like, I really wouldn't be surprised if Mandalorian never came back. If he just got folded into Book of Boba Fett and then wandered on over into whatever story over, because you did say that they're all going to cross over into one big epic thing, right? So your characters can kind of wander, right? They can do that.
So interesting that you talk about the crossover event that Kathleen Kennedy has mentioned. At some point in the future, we're going to get a crossover between Mandalorian, Rangers of the Republic, and Ahsoka, and Book of Boba Fett.
Right.
Friend at Disney brought this up. It's just like, okay, so who's really good at doing crossover events?
Yeah, he's already employed doing something else. Leave him alone.
I get that. But think about it.
You can't poach inside your own company. That ain't cool.
Well, we just talked about Kristen and Bobby writing songs for the WandaVision thing. Think about it. If you're going to do a crossover event for Star Wars, for Disney Plus, wouldn't you want the guy who's clearly proved he's good at that from Marvel handling that?
No.
Just saying.
No. I'm fine with Favreau's doing great. Filoni's doing everything just fine. Let them be the Feiges that Feige is to Feige. Just leave him alone. I mean, it's. I should be totally fine. I don't care one way or the other. But it's like if you're going to divide your attention truly, something's going to give. And I would, as a Marvel fan, I also like Star Wars a whole bunch. I love it, just as much. But I really like where Marvel is. I like the direction that it's headed in the future, apparently. I can be proven wrong at any time a show starts and I don't like it. I can be proven wrong. But everything I like right now seems on track, focused, and that's because of a single visionary driving the bus. With a world of creative backing him up. And as soon as you go, hey, drive 2 buses, someone's going to get into an accident.
And on that note, again, so I'll tell you what, come back here in 2 weeks. We'll have all seen a couple of episodes of WandaVision, and we can start talking about where that show's going to go, and more to the point, what the mystery is. And let's see, beyond that, Aaron, I went out and got myself a treat which is the art book for Marvel's Avengers, the game.
Oh, okay.
I guess we're this far after the launch, but I was kind of surprised to find out that the big bad in this game was MODOK.
Yeah. I mean, it's AIM, so you can have a whole bunch of bad guys, faceless yellow suits, running around to beat up on. So yeah, MODOK's head of AIM. So there you go. You have a bunch of baddies.
Okay, but you and I both know about that Patton Oswalt MODOK, kind of office comedy that's in the works at the talented guys at Robot Chicken, or some Stupid Buddy Studio are doing. And it's one of these things where it's like, really, that's your villain, knowing that this show is coming? Where, you've got Patton Oswalt. I mean, one of the great comics of our age doing MODOK as the frustrated sitcom dad.
Yeah, the reality is that I think game developers believe their games have a longer shelf life than they actually do. And there's a number of games that I have that are still, quote unquote, going on, like Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six. They keep adding chapters and new content, and it's been going for years now, just years. And people still play it. Truly, people still play it, but not very many. I've got a big friends list with hundreds of people on it, and nobody's playing it on that friends list. And it's like maybe Saturday morning at 3:00 after someone got home from the bar, they'll turn on the Xbox and play a couple matches with their buddy, but it's not a big thing. So in this instance, when Avengers comes out and they're using MODOK, and then I don't know how long before Patton's thing actually hits the airwaves or the interweb.
We're just a couple of months out now from the launch.
Yes, I mean, that's maybe 9 months separation between the two. And in the rearview mirror, nobody gives the rat's patoot about the video game that came out almost a year ago that didn't sell very well and didn't play very well. And, at that point, it's just like, that was a dumpster fire. We're looking ahead at this moment. Here's a cool new shiny MODOK with the voice of Patton Oswalt.
All right. Well, I'm still glad I picked it up because it lays out the world building and the epic scale of the game. You definitely get a sense of a lot of very talented people worked very hard.
Oh, sure.
But again, the same thing. Just to hear you describe the bug-ridden experience.
Oh no, I'll tell you what, man. The guys that worked on Marvel's Avengers there on the video game side are probably breathing the biggest sigh of relief that they had nothing to do with Cyberpunk 2077, because that one it came out with your $60 price point as usual for a AAA title, and within I want to say a week or two they had discounted it by $10 or $20 because it was just doing so bad. And then the game stores put up warnings: this barely plays or barely functions on an Xbox One or a PlayStation 4. You probably shouldn't buy it. And then I think PlayStation pulled it from the store altogether, and we're refunding people outright. Here's your cash back. So they didn't have that happen to them. They just didn't have a very good game. And now the problem is, do you want to sink how much time, energy, and money to polish it to get it into a really nice, decent shape, when the sale date was so long ago in the past, and you're not getting new customers right now. You're appeasing off customers is actually what you're doing. How much money are you going to spend on that? Because no matter how good you make it, there's not anybody going to be buying a new copy of this game at this point.
If if you listen carefully, folks, you can hear the GameStop employees weeping softly.
No, I said new copy. They sell the used copies, so you'll
well,
go
there
pick
we
it up
go.
for like $10 or $20. The publisher will make no money off of that. GameStop will make their cut. They'll be not doing well yet, but they'll still be working their scam. I mean business. I'm sorry, business.
Okay, well, on that happy note, we can scratch GameStop off of the potential sponsor list. But all right, thank you for listening, folks, and we will be back with a brand new show soon.